Hello everybody and welcome to episode 69 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games, the podcast where we shine a light on the storytellers, the creatives, and the voices behind the camera. My guest this week is Christopher Kaufman, author and composer of the Tales of the Ocean City series. We dive into his journey as both a writer and musician, exploring how these two creative worlds blended into one epic universe. This conversation truly celebrates the power of imagination, offering a rare glimpse into how far creativity can really take you. If you're enjoying the podcast and want to stay connected, all my links are in the About section, socials, merch, website, and much more. Hitting follow, sharing the show, or leaving a rating really helps Behind the Camera grow. Now, here's the interview. Christopher, welcome to Behind the Camera with Andy Games. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. How are we doing today?
Very, very, very good. I'm glad to be here with you today.
It's lovely to have you. So, yes, you are an author and a composer, and you combine these two worlds to create books with audio albums, which I think is an incredibly unique concept, and I'm very, very interested to hear more about it. So, what can you tell us about your journey from being an author and composer? What came first and how these two link together?
Okay, well, I'd go back to when I was like 9 years old. And I started writing fantasy stories with colorful illustrations. But then, a few years later, I went to the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, and I discovered music. And I played oboe, and I sang the bass solos in Messiah, and played piano, and started composing. I just had some great teachers there, that I really connected with. And so from then forward, I lived the life of a composer all the way through my doctoral degree from Cornell University. And but my stories, never left me. I'm the type of person who, when I go to sleep at night, I have to have like an imaginative scenario, an active one, and get involved. And so anyway, what happened was I emerged with my advanced degrees in music and the complete event structure of Tales of the Ocean City, my fantasy epic fantasy story, and all the way through book 8, which I'm actually writing now. So I started writing them down years ago, and it wasn't quite it wasn't complete. But then when I began my home studio with music, and started saying the words out loud and writing the music at the same time, then it really started happening. And I was doing the music and the words and speaking them out loud, and I really found my voice as an author. And the music is really intrinsic, especially the earlier versions. And sometimes I feel like the text is accompanying the music,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They become completely integrated.
Definitely, yeah. And so whenever then you sort of switched writing for composing, like in your earlier life, did you ever find that whenever you were writing music, that element of storytelling stayed with you that entire time, and did that help kind of feed going back into writing?
Well, early on in the college years, etc., they were pretty separate. My composing was my composing, and it was more absolute music. And then the stories were later, like at night when I was trying to go to sleep, literally. But since that point, since I started doing this, as I explained a minute ago, and then when my daughter was born, I started writing family theater pieces. I took a break from Tales of the Ocean City. I had the first 2 books done and had established my 100 hours, doing that. And then, or 1,000 really. I started writing family theater pieces that were live shows, books, audio books, albums, all at the same time. And I wrote a few of those over a number of years, and then came back to Tales of the Ocean City, and then figured I got to finish the stories now, So they were all integrated. So the storytelling, obviously, in the theater pieces was very, very strong. I also have a lot of pieces like symphonic tone poems
Mm-hmm.
with narration and that are telling stories. Like my piece, Island, which tells the story of the Icelanders traveling. It was a commission in Minnesota, a lot of Icelandic people. So I was, using story, and so it's very powerful in a lot of my work, but most specifically in this, obviously, which is a fantasy series.
Yeah, absolutely. And regarding Tales of the Ocean City, so currently 7 books out, and 8th, as you say, is on its way. So when you started writing that and going through the journey of all of the books, was it always a case where this was meant to just be a written series, and then, as you say, the music kind of came into it, kind of helped the story develop? And has that kind of gotten easier over time as you've been writing?
Well, as I said, the first attempts at getting the stories out
Mm-hmm.
were written, but then I soon came to be doing them all at once.
Yeah.
So they were like equal partners through those first 2 books. But when I came back to it later, I just figured, I have to write this rest of the story. So books 3, 4, 5 don't have audio. You're actually working on book 3 now. I'm getting them
Oh,
out,
okay.
but so they're all written from that point forward, written as books with graphic illustrations,
Mm-hmm.
as graphically illustrated pages and stuff. And then what I did with the early books is I have done a lot of film work, and I created them as video books.
Yeah.
So you have the graphically, illustrated pages streaming by, and the orchestral cinematic music and narration all integrated together into one form of the video book, I call it, which I haven't really seen anywhere else too much. And so those will be, of course, I did all my other my stories I said that were family theater pieces, the musical Forest, Dancing Nighthawk, the Fantastic Zoo. Those pieces are video books and films too. So it's all being put together as I go.
Mm-hmm, of course. And it's such a fascinating concept. And when you say video book, could you sort of like explain what that is in comparison to, like, say, like a motion picture, for example?
Well, that's actually the pages of the book with the text on them floating, streaming by, and it's fully integrated with the audio album,
Oh, okay.
which has the narration and the music, and they're integrated. Like the music and the narration react to each other. They're co-partners, and then so it all matches up. So you can watch the video, you see the page streaming by, and the sound and the narration all work together. So often people will get the books, and then they'll get the audio albums, and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
put the audio album, on their MP3 player, and while they're reading the book, and that's a physical book. It's a really nice experience. So the video book just puts it all together into one thing. You can just look at it, you can listen to it without reading it, But you know, it's like being inside of a movie. It's everything except the live action. It's all in
Yeah.
your imagination.
That's incredible. Like, and like you said, that you haven't really seen that anywhere else. And I'm actually surprised, because with this sort of age that we're in now, where attention spans are kind of all over the show,
Mm-hmm.
they're not what they used to be. Some people's are, most people's aren't. And you have audiobooks, and now that's kind of seems to be taken over, I think, like the written word in a way. But like, people still like to watch things as well. So I can't understand why that isn't such a sort of wider thing, especially because you can sort of consume it in any way that you want to. It's got all mediums there in one go. Like, how that isn't a more widespread thing, I will never understand.
Well,
Because
part of it might be the collection of skills that you need to do it
mm-hmm,
that are developed over time. People ask me sometimes when I compose a piece, how long did that take you to write? And I'll say, oh, about 35 years, even though I wrote it down rather quickly, but
yeah,
it
yeah, of
took all
course,
that time to make a composer out of myself. And then there's the writing of the story, which is, it's a whole other thing where you're boiling it down to its perfect words, and, reducing it and trying to get what you see in your mind onto the page. And then there's the visual element, the graphic illustrations, which come from using Procreate, and then there's the filmmaking aspect of putting it all together into Final Cut Pro. So I'm sure a team of people could do that easily, but I'm not bragging. It's just things that happened over time.
Yeah.
Just a natural progression of doing all these projects and then putting them all together into one thing.
Yeah, yeah. And like I suppose like, when we go back to the theme of imagination, like it's sort of a big part of using your imagination. Like what can you do with every sort of format in front of you? How can we make this kind of unique, interesting? And like I do feel like illustrative novels are kind of like, they seem to be sort of more quite niche in their own way. And but at the same time I don't understand why, because when you're reading a book, the first thing that you do is envision your surroundings. You envision everything about it, the people, the characters, the setting. So why not kind of have that sort of illustration and the music as well to go with it? Like I think that's a fantastic concept. I mean, and I get that people kind of may like to have that sort of themselves and do that themselves, but I mean, at the same time, why not just kind of put it in anyway? And then people, because at the end of the day, art's subjective.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my books, from comments I've heard from others, the illustrative art is backgroundy, and it just gives mood and color,
Yeah.
and then the music, you know what to feel. The emotion is like 10 times stronger, So it's just evolved into kind of a work of art, an art style that I've developed.
That's incredible. And then with Tales of the Ocean City, once you get to book 8, is there going to be more of a continuation on that? And then, or is it going to be
Sure.
kind of, you do book 8, work on the music going forward? Or is it going to be like, continue this as long as you possibly can, as long as you have an imagination?
Oh, it'll continue, surely. I have the next series going in my head when they see the the works begin in a world of classic fantasy, and it's about a civilization turning the corner into the future. But first they have to face an enemy from the deep past, the Vorm, and through the main characters, Harloot and Vespucian. He's a young man. Vespucian is kind of it's called a Parianth, which is a type of telepathic Pegasus, and they're very closely bonded, like family, and they have all these adventures. And one of them is leading a mission to, participate in the epic war that occurs in books 4 and 5, the War of the Vorm. It's hive-like creatures led by a hive king, and so they well, spoiler alert, they succeed. And then the follow-on books 6 through 8, the follow-on series, a trilogy, The Green World, they actually end up turning the corner in the future and exploring space and have adventures in space. So it becomes from classic fantasy, and then of course in the prequels I'll be able to explore that angle even more, and into fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah.
And that's where it is now. So their space exploration is happening. And the next series will be called The Star Kingdom, when they'll jump ahead into the future a bit and continue onwards. And then I have ideas for additional series, but they're in the same world, but somewhere else. Then they meet up with the Tirwalians, etc. So yeah, sure, it'll go on as long as I do.
Incredible. Do you find it hard, like, because you've been writing Tales of the Ocean City for such a long time, would you ever find it hard to kind of write something that is completely out of that world, something completely new? Because I've chatted to authors before who have written series and they find themselves getting rather attached to like the characters and the world that they've created, that they just couldn't really imagine anything else until that they know that is done. Like, do you kind of feel the same way about that, or do you feel like maybe you could at some point do something if you wanted to take like a 6-month break, for example?
I can see that. But as like I said, I'm finishing book 8, and I've planned the next series, and I have ideas for prequels and associated, etc. So it's also a matter of time, because it takes time to finish the thought you have in your head, and then by then it's a couple of years later, just from book to book. So I could see that, but I don't plan on it right now. What my solution to that is to keep evolving the scenario so it becomes more and more science fictiony, and anything can happen. When they go to a new world, it can be really, really different than the worlds you've experienced before.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say like fantasy was your sort of chosen genre from a young age just because of the imagination that you had and kind of the creativity that has kind of came from that?
Sure, it's just I guess it's temperament, and it's the fact that my sister, handed me The Hobbit when I was 10, and I couldn't put it down, and going from there into all of my favorite authors, Lloyd Alexander and Michael Moorcock, and H.P. Lovecraft, and even Edgar Rice Burroughs, and all of those authors are influences in my work here.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think the thing about that fascinates me about fantasy is that it is limitless in terms of what you can do. Fantasy is what you want it to be, whether you're writing it, whether you're consuming it as the reader. It really is like what you want it to be, and I think obviously with Tales of the Ocean City, that kind of shows you with what you've got coming out versus what you've got sort of planned for the future. Like it only kind of who knows where it can kind of go, and that's the sort of beauty of it. It can go absolutely anywhere that you want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and good fantasy, according to one of my favorite authors, Lloyd Alexander. Fantasy is just like good science fiction, is a metaphor. Everything is a metaphor for our lives.
Yeah.
The different kinds of characters, whether they're the heroes or the antagonists, they're different parts of our humanity, of ourselves, and by bringing them out into these characters, you're dealing with them. The obstacles that the characters in Tales of the Ocean City, Harloot and Vespucci and all his friends, and the civilization of the Ocean City, what they're facing with their ancient obstacle, the enemy from the deep past. When they conquer it, it's like resolving some huge part of their origin story, and it helps them move into the future in a new way, in a very clear, open way that might not otherwise have happened. And of course, there's also interpersonal things, characters that reflect people in my life, whether it's my father, my sisters, or this or that, and resolving autobiographical elements from my personal story that emerge, and I see them. Oh, and then I go there more, and then change the names of some of the characters to reflect the people that they were. And how all that ties together is, very cathartic, and the kind of thing that whatever story each individual reader has, it doesn't have to be my story, but they're going to experience that resolution from the whole, the complexity resolving to simplicity, etc., like music does. Music harmony is all about creating a more complex texture that resolves to a more consonant one. That's the function of harmony, right? And so that all of that has really affected how the story works, with the complexity of the problems that are solved and the resolves, which are extremely positive. So, in the more intense, the obstacle, the more positive and ecstatic is the resolve. Like in book one, when it starts off with Harloot and Vespucci, and they're leaving their island home, and they're flying. It's an idealistic pastoral setting, flying over the southern plain. They see the princess and her bondmate Jigla, and they go over to say hello, and then they are attacked by Vorm warriors. And the whole first book, Battle in the Sky, is intense, visceral, amazing, battle scenes between the Vorm and these characters, and it resolves at the end. The first one jumps into like this battle. It's a battle scene, like this episode 3, where Harloot is awaking from being zapped by the psionic blast from the Vorm, and they join in the battle.
Yeah, and you also sent me a clip of the book trailer for book one, so I'm going to play that now.
Tales of the Ocean City is the epic tale about a young civilization turning the corner into the future. But first they must face a terrible enemy from the deep past. The main characters are a young man named Harloot and his lifelong companion Vespucian, who is a Parianth, a kind of telepathic Pegasus. Book 1, Battle in the Sky.
Vespucian, aloft! Cried Harloot. With a thrust of her wings, the white Pegasus shot upwards through billowing clouds. Harloot stood with his arms held out, balancing on her back. They burst into vast heights, the realm of Curlra, the morning sun. Whose powerful beams illumined iridescent mist on his golden sphere. Far below, the ocean roared and thundered. Vespucian reached the pinnacle of her high arc. Now, she thought to him. The Pegasus hovered, and Harloot dove backwards from her haunches. In a swan dive, he clove through tiers of frothing clouds. He used his chest and arms to glide in a spiral through the planet Terroir's thick atmosphere. He reached the cool, misty air just below the clouds, jackknifed and straightened, and sliced right into the churning ocean currents. Dark purples and greens suffused his eyes as he penetrated cold, shadowy depths. He arched his back, frog-kicked, and drifted lazily up towards a ceiling of shimmering blue light. A quick flash of fiery light caught Harloot's eye. He saw a circlet of fire jade winding through the Princess Brineland's hair, which flowed about her neck and shoulders like a cloud of red and orange flames. A scarlet ribbon wound around her lithe form and down her back to meet an abundant sash. A skirt of loose swags flared about her legs in the wind. Harloot cleared his mind with a mesmerizing vision, stood on Vespucian's back, and prepared to utter his call and greeting. But Vespucian suddenly pulled up short in the air and mouthed a rasping bark. Her telepathic voice rang in his mind. Danger! Alarm! Enemy! Harloot instantly hunched over, gripped the mesh along her withers with one hand, and craned his neck up and to the left. He followed Vespucian's stark gaze. Multicolored whorls dissipated in the thick glaze of morning light. A blur formed at the edge of his vision and separated into three jagged shapes growing in size. Blood-red streaks rent the air as three giant warriors riding massive red and black Parianths shot past, heading directly towards the princess. Followed by a venomous, sweet, acrid miasma, sliced through Harloot's senses. All went dark.
And there you go. That was great. I think that kind of really sort of helps envision kind of the storytelling, this battle in the sky. Really, I think if I was sort of reading that book and envision myself in that, that's the sort of music I think I would be kind of expecting to hear. So So obviously, composing the music after the fact that you know when you've written the books. Say if in the future you ever wanted to turn these into feature length movies, would the compositions need to really change that much, considering what they do for the books themselves?
Well, I would rework them in terms of instrumentation and orchestration and stuff like that. Because if I was working with a company to produce it, they would be doing the mixing, right? So they want clean tracks of the music, or if it's a large enough production company, we're going to be recording it with a live orchestra. And if so, I would, just rework the scoring of it a bit, simplify it and make it work for the ensemble, things like that.
Well, at least though, if it ever does come to that, then you've already done the sort of hard work in terms of coming up with the pieces themselves. It's just a matter of kind of making it fit. So whenever it comes to sort of what do you use to sort of compose your music now? Is that all live instruments, or would it be digital tracks?
It's a program called Logic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I know Logic. Yeah.
And so it's me on my keyboard, and then I perform it in and work with it. So I've done that so much that I can do it nearly at improvisational speed now. So I often have professional composers I've worked with say, "Oh, so what orchestra did you use?" And I said, "Oh, it was just me." And they go, "Oh gosh, you're good at this."
Well, that's it's a high compliment, isn't it, to just be told like this is you would think that you have sort of stood in front of an orchestra and have them do this live. That's incredible. Have you done work like that before outside of your writing career? Like because obviously we went through composer, a doctorate, or doctor of composing. Like what sort of work have you done with like live orchestras?
Yes, well, I have an extensive body of work for chamber music. It's all ongoing. I'm still doing that, and I have performances, and I have chamber music and orchestra pieces. People can find, if you want to visit me at my home website, it's soundartist.com. That's sound art us. People go, sound artist? No, it's soundartus.com. And it's like an extensive, website there, like my archive I've been working on here. Just press the composer button, and there's a whole music player with all kinds of music, film music, orchestra music, chamber music, etc., all right there. Music from Tales of the Ocean City. And so you can hear lots of things. And I also have a line of work which I call environmental pieces, which I've been doing since 2010 when I was commissioned by Quintet of the Americas on their 30th anniversary, which they did on, they performed their anniversary concert on Earth Day. So they wanted something with that theme. And having been gotten my degrees that I told you about in my doctorate from Cornell University, they happen to have a world famous library of natural sounds called the Cornell Ornithology Lab. And so being an alumnus, I was able to go on and shop for all these sounds. So I created this piece, Hudson Valley Music, which uses hundreds of natural sounds. And then I created a video to go with it and live performance, live players. So it's all integrated together. Live players, world-class musicians playing with the soundscape created from hundreds of natural sounds that I craft and compose with. And then the video. So I have a line of works, that and others. And even that one I just recreated. I've done it with orchestra, with the original quintet, with soloists, with all kinds of. In fact, I just did a recent one at one of my concerts with electric guitar and bass, and me on a keyboard. And it was my daughter playing guitar, and her bass teacher playing bass, and it was really fun. So that's really, but probably my most performed works are those environmental pieces. People really love them, whatever age they are, they can get into it.
And do you have a particular favorite sort of type of music that you like to play yourself?
You mean to listen to?
Or to perform?
Well, I only perform my own music.
Okay.
That's all I have time for, I know a lot of composers who start in the old days. I played, I was a traveling piano viola duo with my friend George Rosenbaum, and we played all over the place and lots of different music. But for a long time now, it's I haven't been able to keep up my piano chops. I just use it as a tool to compose.
Of course. So whenever you are then sort of performing live, for example, with your own music, would you then take the role of the conductor if you got an orchestra in front of you, or?
Oh yeah.
Yep. So,
not long ago, I did. We went to Minnesota, and we performed the piece I was mentioning before, Iceland, which uses Icelandic poetry. And there was a woman from Iceland who did the voice. It was really fun. And I conducted the community orchestra. And I even brought my daughter down to play the bass drum, because she's a percussionist and she's a very good musician. And I needed that bass drum. It really informs the sound, all the way through.
Because something I've always been fascinated with is like the conductor, like at the front of an orchestra, and it's because obviously there's like for the sort of the common listener, you just see the hand signals and the sort of cues and everything, but like, is there sort of like a sort of set script for what particular sort of hand signals mean, or is it something that you have to kind of like communicate to the orchestra ahead of time in like rehearsal space?
No, it's each conductor can do it differently, but they know what you're doing right away. It's like, you have the basic patterns of the measures, the beat patterns. That's for this hand. And the other hand indicates volume and expression,
Right. Okay.
and things like that. So high and low, that they know what you're doing. You do it your way, but you don't have to explain it to them. I mean, unless you're not doing it well, and then they don't. It does happen where the conductor is like a mystery to the musicians, and that's another story. But if you're an experienced conductor, they know what you're doing, especially if it's your own music, because you're the only one who really knows how it goes, where it's supposed to go. So you better do it right. Now, there might be skeptical when you go to an orchestra. Any new conductor, first of all, any conductor they're skeptical of, even their own one, especially, right? And then a new conductor comes in, they go, who's this guy? And then if it's a composer of a new piece, then they're twice as skeptical. And then you just win them over by going for it and doing it well. And hopefully, they like with that piece, the musicians kept saying, geez, the more we do it, the more we like it. It sounds really good. And you're doing a great job. And it was like the audience reaction was transformative. It was like really, really positive. Right. So that just comes from, I don't know what to say, being a good composer, just being at it for so many. I remember being in my 14 and composing my first piece, and what it was just like to play something in the piano and write it down, and how intense a process that was, and that difficult. And my teacher was really good, Dr. Bro at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, because I would give him a page. This is nothing. No, that's not it. That's not it. Nope, no, nothing. And then when I was composing later, and then I was really worked at it, and then magic happened. It just happened. It was like all together. I had this incredible feeling. And I imagined in my head, I just imagined his reaction, just totally imagined that he would say, tremendous. And when I played it for him, he said that exactly in the tone of voice that I heard it in my head when I was composing it. So that was, I was 14. So
incredible.
I kept at it since then.
Yeah, and rightly so. So between the sort of writing stage for like composition and writing a novel, something that I've heard on both sides is, well, more so for like writing a book, for example. People say you just sort of, if you have a thought, write it down and just keep writing. But then obviously, because you write books and music is not exactly as simple as that, because music needs to have a flow. It needs to make sense. It needs to keep into the same time signatures, the same key and everything like that. And do you take that
I don't
approach?
use those.
Again, sorry?
I have a lot of pieces where I don't use time signatures or key signatures.
Okay.
So in these books, in the audio albums for Tales of the Ocean City, I didn't think about any of that.
Right. Okay.
I just did it.
Yeah. So then would you sort of like take that approach into your music, like where if you have an idea for it, you will just sort of write it, keep it going, and if it sounds to your liking and what makes sense to your book, will you kind of keep it in from there?
Well, it's I've gotten similar questions like this. Where does it come from? What comes first? And all I can tell you is it just happens.
Yeah.
You just get inside the project and you're doing it and it just happens. And it's like a year later, maybe go, wow, I did that. That's cool. But yeah, then I can get myself back into that world and continue it. Like I'm doing now with the audio albums for book 3. I just get in there and it just happens. I just kind of know what to do, and it just flows. And it's not, a lot of it is not pre-calculated. It's not like I'm going to do this and then that. It just, I get into the state of mind. It's almost like, say, my mom is an actor, right? So you have what's called method acting, right? Where you can get into yourself. Like you have a scene, and you have to have a certain emotion. So you prepare yourself by remembering, when your dog died or something, to get yourself sad. Then your character looks sad. But you can do similar things with composing, not quite like that, but get yourself into the mood and the frame of mind and the feeling tone of that project and just go. And then things happen and you don't know exactly where they came from in a intellectual way. They just, it's a composer's artistic intuition, but it's because, so I've done a wide variety of projects, from film, phone music tones, when your phone rings. Did so much he made it his ringtone, but it's a little out of the way, all the way through advanced string quartets and everything in between. And so how does that happen? Well, I've assimilated along the way so many things, and worked them into my process that I have range, like a good actor has range, so I can do a lot of different. People say, oh, I can always tell it's your music, even when it's something completely different, even a commercial for Aquafresh or something, it's still me, or independent films, and but I can massage and tailor my musical language to fit that project, the intent, realizing the intent of that project, right? So that's the best I can do for you on that.
No, totally fair. And would you say that that's something that's just like come with experience, or just sort of having that kind of level of imagination to be like, put yourself in a situation and be like, okay, this is what it needs, and just kind of go with that? Like, is it just kind of like some sort of imaginative intuition, if you will?
Yes. I mean, that's it. You have to have the imagination, and then you accumulate the experience, and you just do it. You just do it. Yeah. So, like people say, you have to write your way there. So after you've done that, and in earlier phases, it's a lot more work to get yourself into a certain place. But if you've just followed your imagination and your intuition all these years, you have an accumulated experience that your imagination got you there, but now you have both, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully is the key word.
Just keep at it, folks. Just keep at it. For me, the challenge with writing is, because I imagine in some of these stories, the really wild visual effects, and imaginative like things that I see in my head, right? How do you get that into words, so other people can see it? That's the challenge. And so I write like short phrases with lines and ellipses and stuff, and then go back and rework it and turn it into sentences, and then take a sentence and turn it into one word, always boiling it down to the essentials as best I can.
Yes.
And hopefully I could continually improve on that.
Absolutely. So then when it does come to writing, would you then sort of, if you're talking like, say, character development, is that how, would you do the same thing with your character development as well as the sort of story and subplots? It's just, you'll have your idea, you'll kind of just do short phrases, and then you'll expand on everything until it just kind of comes together?
Yes, I'm always, for me, I'm always starting with the event structure.
Mm-hmm.
This and then that and this. And then something's happening to a character, like right now, what's happening to Harloot. And I might just write words, like feeling words,
Yeah.
what he's going through, and just string them along, knowing that I'm going to go back and turn that into descriptive action and what's going on in his mind. What's fun about this is the telepathic communication that goes on between Harloot and Vespucian. So, but he has solo adventures too. I get him on his own and to have this big adventure, and then he's talking to himself inside of himself when he's reacting to things. So it's like first person and third person are constantly interrelating to each other, which really brings it alive. So when you have a long stream of time when the Harloot is on his own having this adventure, there's still dialogue all over the place inside of his mind, right? And then when he's talking to Vespucian, they're talking inside their minds to each other telepathically. And so there's a lot of depth in terms of that element of dialogue and what it actually can be and means as they go deeper and deeper and deeper, and they're communicating psychologically to each other.
Yeah. Like, in that sort of thing, I think kind of helps the immersion for the reader as well. They're able to fully kind of
brings it to life.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the more important things of like a book. And I've spoken to so many authors in the past, and like they've kind of said all the same thing, and that's like your reader, you need to kind of show that empathy to your reader, to be like, you can imagine yourself in this role. You can sort of look at the characters and think, oh yeah, like I can relate to certain qualities. There's human qualities of like the protagonist and antagonist. There's redeemable qualities, everything. And to go back to what you said earlier, whether it be autobiographical points or inspired by people from your life, there is like it's amazing what the imagination can do based on real life circumstances. Like, it is such a fascinating thing.
Absolutely. And it takes care of itself once you're in there.
Yeah.
Things occur to you, you never know where they came from, or that you hadn't preordained,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it keeps growing.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's the thing. There is no limit to it in the end as well. So, but Christopher, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Thank you so much for your time. I just want to give you the floor just before we wrap up, just for you to plug yourself for the listeners. Where can we find you?
Well, Tales of the Ocean City can be found at talesoftheoceancity.com. Happily enough, and that's like my homepage from my author work and the books, and you'll see them all there. And I'm getting new beautiful art. I'm working with this artist to redo all my covers, and she's like beautiful artist. It's like amazing. It looks like just like my stories, classical art mixed with fantasy. Anyway, so Tales of the Ocean City, which leads you to anywhere if you want to purchase them, and connects to my store. And my home site is Sound Artist, as I mentioned before, soundartist.com. And my YouTube site, my YouTube channel is Sound Artist, SOUNDARTUS. I once came up with a song for that, but I won't do it. And then, so there's a lot on there, the different playlists. One playlist will be my classical music world and my fantasy stories world, the fantastic theater, which is my series, my concert series, which I put on once a year. So there's a lot on there. You can enjoy yourself. Like my web pages are meant to, you can like scroll down and for 30 seconds get a whole lot, but then you can explore for years if you wish. But those are the main places to find me.
Fantastic stuff. And yes, be sure to check out Christopher's work under Sound Artist, and also Tales of the Ocean City with part 8 on its way. Make sure you get up to date from parts 1 to 7 because you'd be missing out otherwise. Once again, Christopher, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Take care.
You too.
And there you have it. That brings us to the end of episode 69 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Huge thank you to Christopher Kaufman for being this week's guest, sharing his insight into the power of combining the passion of storytelling and music, his book series, and how far imagination can take you. Once again, if you'd like to stay connected and support the podcast, drop a follow, check out my Linktree for socials and more, and share the episode with a friend who you think would get a lot out of it. Until next time, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you soon. But until then, peace.